So, I've seen a lot of talk online about the method of distributing Nintendo Switch 2 games. Of course, you could download them from the Nintendo eShop, or you could buy a physical cartridge. That second option is more complicated than it sounds. As previously mentioned in one of my previous videos, the Nintendo Switch 2 supports two distinct types of cartridges: game cards and game key cards. Game cards store the complete game data and enable immediate gameplay, while game key cards merely provide a key for downloading the game from the internet. However, contrary to this straightforward explanation, there appears to be misconceptions among some individuals online. Numerous users have expressed negative sentiments towards this new type of game card. This video aims to address a lot of confusion and misinformation regarding these, as well as provide benefits and disadvantages to using game key cards on the Nintendo Switch 2. First off, downloading physical copies of games to your console is nothing new. This was a trend that started years ago. In 2013, the Xbox One and PS4 released, and it required every game disc to install itself to the console's hard drive in order to be played. There were actually good reasons for doing this. For example, hard drives as well as SSDs and other forms of flash memory achieve faster loading and disk access time compared to Blu-ray discs and DVDs, allowing games to have shorter loading times. Similarly, in 2001, the original Xbox released, and it came with a built-in hard drive, and some games will auto-install parts of itself to the hard drive in order to achieve fast loading. So what does all of this have to do with Switch 2 game key cards, especially considering that standard game cards are also cartridges with flash memory? Well, even if you were to compare load times between the Switch 2 internal storage and a game card, the internal storage and even a micro SD Express card will always load faster than a game card. Not saying that Switch 2 game cards are slow, but there are just better ways to store games, especially if fast loading is necessary. The easiest way you can tell if a game is on a standard game card or a game key card is by checking the packaging, or by checking the cartridge label for a key icon. While a game key card will download a digital copy of the game to your system, that doesn't mean it's permanently attached to you or your account, unlike a game you would purchase from Nintendo eShop. The license for the game is still stored on the cartridge. That means if you wanted to sell, trade, or lend that game to a friend, you could still do that completely fine. Once you acquire a game key card, an internet connection is required to download the game to your system. But once it's downloaded, you can play the game just fine even without an internet connection, as long as you still have the cartridge inserted. I guess the fact that digital copies will consume storage on your system along with requiring an internet connection for the first download are some negatives to using game key cards. Another problem with standard game cards is that storage is limited to 64 gigabytes. For games that are larger than that, it is pretty much necessary to use a game key card. However, another problem occurs when you consider that some games are far smaller than 64 gigabytes. For example, a single game could be 1 to 2 gigabytes or 4 gigabytes in total. According to numerous websites, Nintendo only offers a capacity of 64 gigabytes for standard Switch 2 game cards, with no options for larger or smaller capacities. Consequently, if a game occupies a relatively small amount of space, the remaining portion of the cartridge would be rendered unusable. Unlike the original Switch, with its game cards coming in capacities of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32 gigabytes. And I didn't even mention that manufacturing high-speed, high-capacity cartridges are expensive. More expensive than Switch 1 cartridges. The reason for not producing Switch 2 game cards with lower capacities is not known, but it's likely because game key cards are just a cheaper alternative. Regardless, all first-party Nintendo games will come on a 64GB game card regardless of the game's actual size. For example, Donkey Kong Bonanza is 8GB and stored on a 64GB cartridge. Kind of a waste of cartridge space, to be honest. I've also heard concerns about game preservation, and to be honest, I don't think we need to worry about that for a while. Even though you can no longer purchase digital games from some of Nintendo's older systems, including the Wii U and 3DS, it is still possible to officially download previously purchased games from those systems even in 2025. I actually tested this, and it actually works. I'm saying this because even in like 10 to 20 years when the Switch 2 gets discontinued and the eShop no longer supports it, the chances are you'll still be able to re-download any previously purchased games, including those game key cards. So in summary, Nintendo Switch 2 game cards are limited in storage capacity, are expensive to manufacture, and have slower performance compared to internal storage and micro SD Express cards. Additionally, game key cards require an internet connection for download, and they consume system storage, but in return, you achieve faster loading. Now, I have a mixed opinion on this. However, one negative is that you will need an internet connection to download the game first, which is not a problem for me because I rarely take the Switch 2 places, but others may not do the same. It would definitely be an issue for those that buy games while traveling with their Switch 2. That will pretty much wrap up this video. If you found this video helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys later.